The trial of WNBA star Brittney Griner began today as Russian authorities have accused her of smuggling significant amounts of a narcotic substance. The two-time Olympic gold medalist arrived earlier this morning at a court near Moscow. Griner, who was arrested on February 17th, faces allegations that could be punishable by up to 10 years in prison. She is currently being held at a pretrial detention center in north of Moscow. According to her lawyer, her detention was extended 6 months pending the trial's outcome. So let's welcome in ESPN special correspondent Angela Rye, who has interviewed Brittney's wife, Sherelle. And Angela, I want to ask you this. What should Brittney and her legal team expect as the trial opens today?
Well, what we know about Russia, some of us know from looking and trying to figure out what's going to happen next, is that Russia's legal justice system is not like our justice system. Their legal system, they normally have a conviction rate that is super high. I'm saying to the tune of 99%. So normally when we go into the court system in America, we have a presumption of innocence. We're innocent until proven guilty, at least some of us in this country, more often than not. In Russia, that's not the case at all. What happens is Brittany's team will be allowed to present a case, and that case is not going to be heard. If it's about innocence, they expect that you mitigate guilt rather than presume innocence at all. So, for the first four hearings, of which we know the second one will be on July 7th, the prosecution will continue to present their case. They're talking about high levels of drugs being smuggled into Russia, and we're talking about an alleged zero point 0.7 grams of hash oil. So we also see our standards very differently. I think the other thing that's important for people to know is that the prosecution won't be able to even state its case until four hearings in. So that's where we are right now. And that's what her team can expect and what they've expressed we can expect.
Yeah, Angela, based on the past history of these types of show trials, how likely do you think Brittney Griner is to be acquitted of these charges?
Well, acquittal also is very rare in Russia. So anyone appearing before a Russian judge, you should not expect an acquittal. And in fact, what we also know on this 135th day that Brittany Griner has been wrongfully detained in Russia is that she has to be convicted and sentenced and then request a presidential pardon. That pardon is where there's an exchange for one Russian citizen for Brittany. And that's what we can expect to happen. She doesn't necessarily have to move through the trial process, but she would have to be convicted. The only way for her to circumvent the trial process is for President Biden or someone very senior in the administration to make a call to the Russian government to ensure that Brittany can be exchanged for someone else and receive that presidential pardon and be returned to us. Until then, Brittany's not safe. I think the other thing that people need to really understand is that Brittany isn't just being in a is being held isn't being held in a facility near this court. Brittany has a round trip 5-hour commute to this courthouse every time she arrives. Where she's being held is 5 hours. I'm sorry, it's 2.5 hours from this courthouse. So every time Brittany has a court date, she has a 5-hour round trip. So this is an excruciating process, particularly when she can't make any statements about her innocence. If she is, she'll be punished. So she has to go through this process, watch them bring this case about high levels of drug smuggling, and that has to be especially infuriating. Of course, we know that someone from the US government today spoke on behalf of the administration and said it's the highest priority for them to get Brittany home. We would like to see those words met with action.
What kind of legal representation does she have? Because you mentioned in terms of being here, of course, it's different than being in Russia, but what kind of people representing Brittany Griner far, far away from home?
Well, and I think again, it's not what kind of people, it's the kind of system they have. So in Russia, the defense attorneys are really there to mitigate the sentence and to mitigate how guilty, right? There's not a presumption of innocence. They expect once you're arrested, that means you're guilty. And that is how they move. They say that this is the evidence that has been presented. They're laying out what they're calling high levels of drug smuggling into Russia. And we're talking about zero point 0.7 grams of hash oil, again, that was alleged to be in Brittany's suitcase. I would also remind the audience that this is the same trip that Brittney has made for several years, winning championships for her professional basketball team in Russia. She's got to be traveling the same way. So the one thing that was different between this trip and Brittney's other trips is that Russia was about to invade Ukraine. That's what's different. There was a conflict that began to arise, and we had a level 4 travel advisory from the United States urging United States citizens not to travel because of things like this, right? If there is someone on our territory that is now in Russia, going to Russia, they're in harm's way because they know that the only way to get Americans' attention is to do something like this. And that is to hold one of their brightest stars too. Brittney's not just a star for us. She's not just a WNBA all-star and champion here. She's also an Olympic gold medalist and has also won championships for her team in Russia.
Yeah, she's very well known in Russia. As you mentioned,
That's right.
she's won championships there. And you said that we talked earlier about how you talked to her wife. How much communication has she been having with her family?
So I want to be very clear because I think the American people don't understand this. Sherelle Griner has not spoken to Brittney for 135 days. She has not heard her wife's voice for 135 days. There have been notes exchanged, and that is it. You all will note that a few weeks back, they began to say that Brittney can now receive emails, right? That is the case. That's the only way Sherelle is communicating with Brittney. So all of this, probably one of the scariest moments in her life, she cannot hear the voices of her family members. That in and of itself is enough to make anyone crazy. And while Brittney is saying she's keeping the faith, she's standing strong, she's doing the best she can given the circumstances, this is very, very difficult to watch, and I can't imagine what she's experiencing.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming, sports, and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.